Welcome to the Strength Club podcast. This is going to be a form check episode. We're throwing this one back. Adam and Byron have been lovely in taking care of these ones for us. But how many form checks do we have today in the queue, Mick?
We have 8, I think, if we can get through them all.
All right, we have 8 to get through, people, and these are form checks submitted through our users for the Strength Club app and then the Starting Strength app. Correct?
Starting strength app.
Starting strength app. Okay. All right. Well, let's get after it. I'm a starting strength coach. You can start playing a video on one side while I do all of my shilling. I'm a starting strength coach in the DC area. If you need some coaching, reach out to me. I run an online coaching service, probably like everybody else's, but I think mine is better. Just because my programming is better. It's really simple. We'll do a little Christmas special. If you're watching this show, we'll do, let's say, like half off the first month or two. Let's do half off for the first 2 months. We're feeling generous. It's the Christmas season. But we'll go through form checks like this. We'll do individual programming, all that stuff. Who do we have here, Mick?
This is Grant, and he says, it's been a couple of years since I've had a starting strength coach. Would love any feedback on this set of presses. This is my 5th set of 5 at 195.
5th set of 5 at 195. Grant probably looks like he weighs 230 pounds and is 6'1". Did he include those stats?
No, he
He
did
did
not.
not. Okay, let me know how accurate that is, Grant. Yeah, so there's an interesting thing that can happen with some people's pressing. So, like, if you're new to starting strength, you're looking at this press. This is a really solid press. It needs a little bit of subtle refinement. So his system is in balance, but the bar, if you can pause it when he's like halfway up a rep, Mick, like right there. Okay, so if you were like to put a pressure plate on his foot and then see if it's balanced, he's totally balanced right now. But you see how the bar is a little bit forward of his shoulder. That's bad. Okay, so it's like he's in balance right now. He's pressing the bar straight up, but it could be stronger if the bar was going a little bit more backwards and his whole body was a little bit more forwards. Okay, um, so I do this on my press too. What I have to end up thinking about is I need the bar over my hair. I'm getting the bar over my hair as soon as I possibly can. So he's essentially shooting his head backwards and keeping the bar over, let's say, like the front of his delt, as opposed to doing a little bit more of a subtle bounce, being shifted forward a little bit more, and then getting the bar more backwards. So this would be like a much stronger position if right now the bar was much closer to his hairline, if not already over his hair. But if we look at this position right here, the bar is significantly forward. Grant, you probably don't feel like you're doing anything wrong because it feels like the system is in balance, right? But you can just do it 2 ways. You can throw some weight behind the bar and do this, where the bar is forward but still over your midfoot, or you could just keep everything over midfoot. So kind of push your chest forward a little bit more, get yourself a little bit more forward to start, and then get the bar backwards. Let's keep playing this. Yeah, this looks exactly like my press. Yeah, it takes a while to fix this. Yeah, so it's not that dramatic on the early reps, and then that distance between your head and the bar gets more and more dramatic as it goes on.
What do you think about his grip width?
I don't really mind the grip width. The grip width is a little bit different for everybody. Like if his wrists can tolerate it, his elbows can tolerate it, that's fine. Frankly, I would say it's on the narrow side, but he's probably been pressing with this grip width for years, and if I change it, it's going to feel too weird. So, Grant, if you want to change your grip width, that is a multi-month project to get that to feel exactly the same. But I don't think it's going to help or hurt terribly much right now. Yeah, I wonder if he is, if I'm looking at him, it looks like he's in a good amount of back extension. I really hate to use the word overextension, but I wonder if you're setting up like that intentionally, where you're like sort of pushing your belly forward, and then leaning back. Um, if you're doing that on purpose, I like people stand up a little bit more straight because it tends to minimize the layback. Like if you're starting from an already partially laid back position, you'll just immediately fall into your layback no matter what. If you can start a little bit more straight up, then that layback will be more earned or deserved, as opposed to just immediately laying back and then your head gets a mile behind the bar. When the head gets a mile behind the bar, you can do it. You can get away with it, right? But at this weight, with that relative difficulty of press, like let's say if we put like 210 on the bar, 215 on the bar for him, you'd probably be able to do it for a single or for a double. Then that layback, you would need such a severe layback, but you don't need that severe of a layback for a bar that's moving that fast. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that should be it for Grant. What do we got next? Who do we got?
We got Chris Maria.
Chris
Uh,
Maria.
says, hi team, would like to understand what you think of my form. Many thanks.
I wonder if Chris Maria is actually just this dude standing in the background. That's Chris Maria. The video looks like it's centered on him. I think you're doing great. You look good.
Yeah, he's got
Knee
the knee
sleeves,
wraps
pink
going.
shorts on.
Yeah, yeah.
Nope, he left.
Looks like he's squatting a decent amount too, old mate in the background.
Yeah, we got what? We got 275 in the bar over there.
Mm.
All right,
This
let's
video,
start that from the
this
top
video
again, please.
keeps going though. I think he might have another set here.
Oh, does he
This
have
looks like his
more?
second set. Yeah.
Oh, this is even more informative. Was that just a top single?
Let me. There was a bit of a
Or
breather,
did you
so
jump around there?
I fast forwarded through. Do you want to start from the start again, or
Yeah, let's see if you can start from the start of the second set because we already saw set one.
let's see? Yeah. So this is him finishing the first set. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so for everybody filming at home, I have all of my lifters like flash a corresponding number of fingers up to the set. So if it's like set four, they're like set four. And then one of my guys, he goes the extra mile. If it's like 405, he's like set four at 405. It's amazing. Just for your own record keeping, it is quite helpful. Okay, so that was just a heavy single then, Mick.
Yep.
But we are not
There's still
allowed
a
to
lot to come.
tell what's on the plates. Oh, he's doing more reps after this.
Yeah, it looks like it. There's another 30 seconds left on this video.
It would be nice if he just stood there for 30 seconds and psyched us out. Okay, one thing that's just a little bit of a passion point of mine is that he's seating the bar pretty deep in his palm, right? So if you notice, he's like pushing down on it so that it's getting all the way to the web of his thumb. I really dislike that because the bar ends up sitting, above like the distal folds at the end of the palm skin, and it pulls on that palm skin. And this is where people are like, "Oh, I keep tearing calluses when I deadlift." It's like, yeah, the bar's in the wrong spot. The bar should be basically slightly above that. It should be basically at the bottom of the fingers rather than deep in the palm. This way, like you're not going to pull any calluses that way. Let's go back to set one then, Mick, if we can,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to set two. Set two wasn't terribly informative.
Yeah, this is set one.
Okay. Yeah, so a good indicator for you, it was a Justin, you said?
Chris.
Chris, excuse me. Yeah, a good indicator for you, Chris, is just any forward bar movement. If you are rolling the bar forward at any point in time, something is going wrong. And then for you, that's going to be relative hip height. You seem like you have relatively, I don't want to say relatively long legs, but your hip height is going to be quite high. If you could pause it as he's setting up for a rep. So let's say like when his shins get on the bar, we'll try to pause it
So here or a bit more.
a little bit more right before he starts the pull. Yeah, his shins right there. Okay. Yeah. So at this point, like you're trying to extend the back, but in reality, you're dropping the hips. That's the going to be shifting the bar forward. The bar's a little bit forward to midfoot right now. And then as you start the rep, the hips are going to come up and they're going to come back. That's where they should have been in the first place. So it may feel like a stiff leg deadlift for you, but that's fine. Okay, just don't worry about that for right now. You'll get used to it over time. The transition is going to feel weird, and then you can hit play, Mick. Yeah. So he sets it again. Keep going. Yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of like hip movement we're seeing. The hips are moving up and back, and then the back is sort of coming out of extension. That means the back should be there in the first place. The hips should be there in the first place. So, like, even if you think you're setting your back into extension, but the hips are low, you can't get sufficiently tight, right? Once the hips are in the right spot and they're sufficiently high, then that back extension can really sort of like take. That way, you won't get thrown out of it immediately. That time the hips were sufficiently high, but we didn't extend the back. So that was just sort of a classic rounded back rep. If you could go back to that rep again, Mick. Just pause. Yeah, so right there, right? So it's like we see the hips are sufficiently high because the hips didn't move any higher, right? His shins are sufficiently vertical, but we did not see any back extension prior. This is one of the reasons where, some people really dislike the mixed grip. I don't think it's the end of the world because, well, I think our arms are quite durable for the most part. Some people they may run into bicep tendonitis issues, but I think for most of our population, we're not deadlifting heavy enough for that to be a real concern. So like you can see how relatively bent his arm is, right? This right arm, Mick.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like just making sure that's not just me going crazy. When you're doing an overhanded grip, your arm is going to be rotated like this. When you're doing an underhand grip, your arm is going to be rotated like this. It's very easy to bend your arm when you're doing this underside grip. When you're doing an overhand grip, it's actually really difficult to bend your arm. It would be bent this way, right? So you'd be like doing like a bent arm clean if you're having an overhand grip, and then you want to bend your arm. This is like quite difficult to do during the deadlift. When you have an underhand grip here, it's even harder for me to fully straighten my arm. But like if I'm here, the natural position of my arm is going to be slightly bent. Okay. This is what's going to happen on the deadlift. This is why people say that underhand grip is going to cause some problems. Because not only is it, it could be theoretically dangerous on the bicep, but it's actually shortening the arm a little bit. Okay. And then that makes your back extension setup even harder. So if you go back to the video, Mick. Yeah. So like hips were sufficiently high, but we need to think back extension. For you, I would say do overhand and then do straps. Hook grip is fine too. A lot of people don't like hook grip. I prefer straps. That'll solve the underhand arm issue. And then in terms of back extension, think showing your pecs up at the wall in front of you, pushing your belly down, pushing your butt up. And then this motion right here, where you sort of kick the bar forward to kind of get emotionally ready and then in the zone, definitely don't do that because it just throws your position off. Okay, because right now the bar is like slightly behind the midfoot, I think. We'll see what happens when the rep decides to take off. Yeah. So you kicked it forward and then you ran into the same exact issue. So I would say number one priority, initiate no bar movement forward or backwards. The bar is just where it is. Okay. The bar is like a fixture in the gym. Pretend you're in a Smith machine. Do not move the bar for back or forward or back at all. Second priority, I would say switch to your overhand grip. So double overs. You can do hook grip. So thumb inside the fingers or do straps. I'm partial to straps. And then once you sort of fix the grip and then you sort of fix that bar rolling forward and backwards, then think you can start refining the back extension. He's already trying to extend his back, okay? But you just have to refine that, and then you can only start refining it whenever the bar stops moving, right? Because if you're trying to really extend your back, but then you notice that the hips come down, right, and then you move the bar forward, then your back extension efforts are in vain, right? Because you've moved the bar. So once you get a few sessions of saying, "Hey, I did all my deadlifts, the bar did not move a single time," then I can start really refining that position with your back. All right, let's hit the next one. Who do we got?
We have Kaner. I think it's either Kaner or Chainer or Sainer. I don't know how to pronounce this, but he says, "Could you please evaluate my squat 90 kilograms? I will keep increasing the weight if my form is okay."
I like Chainer. I think it's probably Chainer.
Caner.
Oh, Caner. That's Kaner.
Could be
Yeah, so he's like
Chainer.
Chainer.
Mm.
Yeah, whenever the plates look weird, like they've been made in someone's basement, it's you don't know what the name is going to be. And this squat rack is kind of amazing, though. Look at this. I've never seen a squat rack like this. Okay, yeah. So high bar squat, it's a little bit high. The stance is too wide. The bar is too relatively high in the back. That rep was to depth. That last rep was to depth. That one was a little bit high again. Okay, yeah. So Kaner, Shanair, the weight is still light for you, which is good, right? So you can probably keep increasing the weight. It depends on how much you care about getting the squat right. Frankly, if I had you in person, we would rebuild the entire thing. The bar is too high in your back by about like an inch and a half. If you look up where to put the bar for the squat, Nick Delgadillo, there is like an amazing, very straightforward video about where to put the bar for the squat. It goes over the exact low bar position that we're looking for, right below the spine of the scapula. Not going to explain it all now because it'll take a few minutes, but we just need the bar down about an inch and a half more. And then when you're doing that, I want you to aim your forehead at the floor, not just your eyes. So right now you're staring at the mirror, basically. You're making sure that you still exist. You're looking at the mirror. You're like, I'm hot. I'm squatting this weight. It's great. What it should be like is, let's say I have this hat on right now. I should not see anything in front of me when I'm squatting. I want my head aimed down at the floor. And if I look up, all I see is the brim of my hat. My head is aimed down like this. Okay. That's what you're looking for in terms of your head. Okay, and then the torso angle will follow where your head is pointed. So if we move the bar down and then you just keep staring at the mirror, nothing will change. Okay, but we need to move the bar down and then move your gaze down. Okay, so remember, like I'm aiming my hat, I'm aiming my forehead, my nose, and my eyeballs at the floor. Think like 2 feet in front of me, really close, and then you're going to start leaning over. Okay, and then I think with a guy like this who's getting this depth with this stance, like you have pretty decent hips on you. I don't know if we would have to change much to actually get you to hit appropriate depth. Okay, I think if we change the bar position and change the head gaze, you'll probably just sink down another 3 inches on your own. And then the challenge after that will be hip driving out of the bottom. Another amazing video by Starting Strength, the boys. It's hip drive. I think it's the essentials of human movement, or the fundamentals of human movement. I'm not sure which video that is, but it goes over some very clear examples of what hip drive looks like. But essentially, you're at the bottom of the squat, and then you're just connecting your tailbone to the ceiling. So the only thing you're thinking about is, where's my tailbone? Where's the ceiling? Push my tailbone to the ceiling. Um, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel like a totally new movement pattern. I would probably take it down to like 60, do some pause squats, sets of 6, sets of 8, whatever you need, to help, like, I don't want to say groove it in, because, of course, people are going to say, well, when it's 100 kilos, it's going to feel different. Yes, it is. But just so you can familiarize yourself with the torso angle, even just extend your squat warm up. So next time you're going for 92.5 kilos, something to that effect. Okay. Take like an extra 15 minutes, take an extra 10 minutes, do more sets at 60, do more sets at 70. Pause when you're at the bottom, really lean over, and then drive your hips up out of the bottom. Really lean over in the pause, drive your hips up out of the bottom. But yeah, so seeing his depth with his stance and then where he's at now, I don't think depth is going to be a challenge for him when you adjust the bar and you adjust the gaze. The gaze adjustment should take care of the torso angle for him automatically. But if it doesn't, just think about pushing your pecs down to your knees. So I like to think about, getting my pecs literally in between my knees, because I have a really short torso. I need to do that. But for him, he has a longer torso. It's not going to be that dramatic. Okay. But overall, it's a fine high bar squat.
What do you think about his stance width?
It's too wide, but like, he's getting away with it. So it's not the biggest concern. I think whenever, and this is one thing that I've noticed, is that whenever you adjust people's stance and then their gaze, they're looking at their feet, they tend to narrow their stance up on their own. So like, even if he does all of the recommended changes, he's squatting to depth and he's leaning over more and his stance is slightly too wide, I don't really care, because again, he's squatting sufficiently deep and he's leaning over. Okay. If he was squatting, let's say like 8 inches higher, then I would say it's absolutely stance limited. That means that you need to play with the stance, but he's already squatting basically right. He's really close to depth with a wide as hell stance. So your boy has good hips. So whenever he leans over, he'll get the rest, no problem.
All right, thanks, Kana. We have Ernie next.
Ernie, that's a
Ernie's.
classic name.
I want to know where Ernie is.
He's
This guy.
outside.
Yeah, well, I know. Which country? I reckon this guy has a lot of guns. If I just had to guess.
This could be like a Texas situation,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
This could be like a sunroom, could be a covered porch.
Mm.
Yeah, whenever we used to do the form check shows weekly, and we were grooving with that. The amount of random South American boys who were in the show, I love that.
It's true.
Just people with absolutely insane gyms.
This guy said it. Ernie says it's his third work set, 5 reps, 152.5. Geez, I tell you that whatever's hanging off his shirt doesn't look great when he's squatting down.
That's so hard to see for me. What is that?
I think it's just a.
Can you tell what that is?
I think it's the draw straps on his pants.
Oh, it's just
You
the
know?
same color as the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's play this. Let's play this again. See what's going on. Well, to start, Ernesto. I really dislike micro loading the squat. I don't think you have to do that. You really shouldn't be having to do that right now. Next thing I would say, I would rather have you squatting in bare feet and socks, or I would rather have you squatting in dress shoes than I would have you squatting in these shoes. Anything with a hard sole is going to be better than these bouncy moon shoes. So if it's like really comfortable for walking, it's not a good squatting shoe. So just in terms of like setup errors, I would stop squatting in these shoes. If you have an old pair of hard soled dress shoes, those would unironically be better than what you have now. It seems as if he's getting to depth. The bar is a tad high. I would widen the grip up and I would scoot the bar down very slightly. Um, yeah, he's nestling it into sort of the middle of his traps. and it should be a tad lower, not terribly lower. It's not like a Kaner situation like the last set or the last video we watched, but it's a bit close. He only needs like half an inch lower. And if you could pause it at the bottom of a rep, it doesn't matter which rep. Oh, that was an amazing catch. Good catch. Um, yeah, so it's really hard judging depth from the front. So like powerlifting judges, you have your side judges and your front judge. The front judge has a hard job. He's looking at everybody's giant stomachs and then their singlet testicles. It's a difficult time. Like if you're looking at this, you're like depth is hard to judge. It absolutely is hard to judge from here. I would wager he is at depth or slightly below, very, very slightly below. I think he can get away with squatting deeper. I think the bar position on the back will help him squat deeper. Squat shoes would certainly help him go down. But the big thing that you can sort of infer from here is like, look where his eyes are now. So you see like kind of the top of his glasses, he's pointing his head down, and then we'll play it and then watch what happens with his face. See how it starts coming up? Okay, so in the end, we can essentially see his face. Face is pointed down, face comes up right there. Okay, so when his face is coming up, that's when he's picking his chest up. Ernie, I want you to keep your nose aimed down the entire time. Just like we said to Kaner, like if you have a hat on, you should not be able to see anything in front of you. All I could see above me would be the brim of my hat. Really aim that shit down. So when you're there, you'll continue driving your hips up. Because if we're looking at what he's doing, the second his face is coming up, he's lifting his chest up, and that's when the bar speed really slows down. He's doing a good job of looking down, then he cranks his face up. And then he's picking the chest up. I think the early 2 reps probably were a tad high now that we're watching this again. Yeah, so I want you to think about staying your hips, Ernie. So keep driving your hips up to the ceiling. Do not pick your head up. Do not pick your chest up. Mick, if you could make me the big screen, please. So if we think this is the head and then my elbow is the hips, okay? So the squat, what we want to see, pretend we're at the bottom of the squat now, is that the hips come up slightly and then the whole thing elevates. And then basically right at the top is when you finish. Okay. If you look at people when they're squatting, they don't actually stand like perfectly vertical, perfectly upright, right? But if we what we see is again, this is the head, this is the hips. If I see this during the squat, if I see this is leading with the chest, and this is when the bar speed slows down. Okay, all of my contributions of my legs, they really can't impact bar speed very well when this is happening. What we want to see is, let's say this is our torso angle. We're squatting down. The hips lead the dance very slightly, and then everything finishes together. Okay, and then you watch the people squatting, and then you realize that even at lockout, most people are still slightly lean. They're still slightly leaned forward. Just their legs are extended, and that's totally fine. Okay. But again, we want the hips to slightly lead the dance. The hips slightly lead the dance. It's not super dramatic. It's not like this. Okay. We don't want this. This is the kind of the dreaded morning squat. But we want the hips to slightly lead the dance and then everything follows it. What we don't want to see is the chest waving backwards. So if we watched Ernie's squat from the side, basically he would get like 70% of the way through the squat and then he would do this. And then his face comes up. Okay. It's almost like he's waving up like this. So it's like, can't see my head, seeing the bill of my hat, then this happens. Okay, he's here, and then whoop, this is when the bar speed slows down, and that's really undesirable. He's getting away with it now because he said it was only 152 and a half. But whenever, let's say like that's 275, in a few months for him, if he keeps squatting, that's going to be a problem. Let's see, who else we got, Mick?
Nicholas Webb, deadlift, 330 for 3.
I remember this guy. This guy had that weird squat rack. Do you remember this?
Yeah, yep. And he's
Mm-hmm.
got a squat buddy as well. We'll get to see it again.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. What was the weight on the bar here?
330.
330. All right, so he's getting stronger slowly, but it's happening. Okay, yeah. So most people would be you should be very happy about this deadlift if this is your deadlift. The bar's over the midfoot. You know, back is attempting the extension that it can. Head's looking down in a decent spot. The refinements right now are mostly at the lockout and at the descent. Okay, so if you could go back to the first rep and then try to pause it right at the very top, Mick. So see this sort of motion right now, your knees are at a soft lockout. So like if you pretended that the bar didn't exist and then you could see his legs, do you see how like his whole body is somehow tilting backwards? That's because his knees aren't locked out, right? I like to tell people I want your pecs to be right over the bar if they have actual pecs, or if I want your armpits to be right over the bar, your collarbones over the bar, some sort of cue like that, something on the front of your body, right? I don't want you cranking behind the bar like this, okay? Because generally what happens is the knees don't really get to full lockout. So he's not actually completely straightening his knees, and then he's just sort of cranking back at the hips with still bent knees, and then you end up in a position like this. Okay, a lot of times this can be irritating for people's lower backs. Not to say that it will be like 100% of the time, but it can. It can irritate a lot of people, including myself. So think about standing tall, standing straight up, and then staying over the bar, and then hit play again. And then he'll sort of pop between the reps. So he'll finish the rep and then just immediately go back down with sort of no pause at that lockout. I like to tell all my lifters for really quite some time, almost their whole lifting career, you should pause for a second at the top of your deadlifts. It doesn't cost anything. You're already up there. You already lifted the weights. It's not that taxing on your grip. It just really helps correct a lot of form issues. Because what's happening is he's cranking behind the bar, and then he has to descend weirdly because of the fact that he's pulling himself behind. Okay, so pause it again at the top. Okay, so what's going to happen here is that he's going to bend forward and then slightly bend his knees, but the bar is going to ramp, slope, or like ski off of his knees and then go back down. If we can imagine him just standing, upright normally, all he has to do is just look down and then sit the bar straight down. Okay, but he has to go through this slightly more odd procedure to get the bar back over midfoot. He's getting away with it because he's been doing it for sufficiently long enough. But if you're standing up nice and tall, Phil Meggers has a really good video on this. It's on the Starting Strength YouTube channel. It is a quick tip to sit down the deadlift. Look down at your shoelaces. His eyes are already in a pretty good spot for it, and then you just push the bar straight down. Okay, so we wouldn't see that knee bend. We wouldn't see that sort of, like the bar going forward and around his knees and then back. So we wouldn't see this thing happening with it. And he's getting away with it right now because it's 330, and that's definitely a heavy deadlift for him. But if we put like 365 on the bar, he could probably do it, for a double, maybe another triple. But that positioning would get more and more strained and then less and less accurate. And you can play it again, Mick. Yeah, so the bar and the descent for the deadlift should miss the legs entirely. So it having to go around your knees, we don't want that at all. Yeah, still like decently solid in the ascent. I think the big thing is the lockout in the descent for you. And I would say do more chin ups. I don't know how much your arms have grown since I've seen you over the years, but they need to grow more, certainly. And we said we have a squat from him as well.
Yeah, we do. Yep. Should bring that one up.
He got a new squat rack, boys. He's finding rare squat racks from various decades across the United States. How much do we have on the bar here?
245.
245. Okay, so the squat definitely needs some work. The deadlift was in a good spot. Squat needs some help. If you could try pausing this at the bottom of any rep. Okay. I think this is a little bit high. I would like a little bit more depth here. Nice. What amazing editing. Yeah, so he's a little bit on the toes. The heel, the right heel in particular, it's starting to float just a tad. And then I would like some more depth here. Keep playing it. Let's see how the squid set finishes. We got one more in him. Yeah. So this is it's a hip drive issue, just like we had with Ernie last time. But I think he's starting on the toes. Yeah, if you can go back again, just replay that first rep. So we'll actually see him. So he gets his stance set up, and then it'll look like his whole body rocks forward, and then he descends. Do you see that right there? Replay that like 1 second. He sets up, his whole body shifts forward, and then he starts squatting. Okay, so he put himself on his toes, sabotaged himself, and then started the set. Okay, so he's used to squatting a little bit forward on his toes. I would widen the stance up by about like an inch and a half in total. So just like, move each foot out, let's say like 2 fingers widths, like basically this width. And then I want you to think about sitting your collarbones in between the middle of your feet. Okay. So to do that, you're going to have to shift your butt backwards in space, and then you're pushing your pecs and your collarbones straight down. Right. So his issue here is, he's slightly forward the entire time. He's used to setting up forward. We're seeing that. We're literally seeing him rock forward before he starts the descent. And because you're on the toes, it's causing a hell of a lot of other issues. So like the fundamentals of what you're doing are like correct enough. You're trying to lean over. The grip seems like okay. The stance, the toes are pointed out, but things are just like slightly off. We'll need you to widen the stance out so you can push your chest down into the hole. And then hopefully that'll get you off the toes. And then once you're off the toes and then you're getting deeper, then you can think your tailbone comes up to the ceiling. If you could replay that last rep and then pause it real quick. Okay. So what we're going to see is his hips are going to come out of the bottom, but they're not going to push up completely. Okay. So what we want to think about is, the knees get into full extension, right? Before the torso angle changes very much. That would be like a good marker for hip drive. The hips just push up to the ceiling independently. But what we're going to see is the hips come out of the hole slightly, and then it stops and it looks weird. His knees come forward again, and then he lifts his chest up. Hit play, Mick. So hips are coming up, and then it looks weird. The knees come forward again, and there's that finish. Yeah. So that rep 5 right there, or rep 4, I'm not sure which rep that was, whatever that final rep was, this is a really good example of not finishing with the hips. And this is a really good example of that weird chest pickup I was talking about. Yeah, it's exactly what I was talking about with Ernie. That's when he picks the chest up. Yeah, this is what you need to avoid. So when we say stay in your hips, this is exactly what we're talking about here. Okay. Because again, turn myself sideways slightly, right? But if I'm here and then I do this during the squat, if I wave my chest up, my knees are going to go forward that way. Knees are going to go forward, and the bar speed is going to slow down dramatically. What we want when we're saying staying in the hips is these are the hips, this is the head. That torso angle is staying relatively constant. The hips are leading the dance, but I'm going up, 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 and then I'm right at lockout already. Okay. What we don't want is the hips come up a little bit, and then the chest waves up. Because you see how my hips come forward when that happens, right? So, boop, the chest comes up, the hips go forward, that sends the knees forward, and then that's that really slow, awkward thing that we're seeing at the end of his rep. Yeah, so the big thing for you, dude, is just staying in your hips. And if it feels like the bar speed is slowing down, like disproportionately, to like what a hard squat should be for you. So you're like, okay, that was a really fast bounce out of the bottom. And then for some reason, my bar speed just slows down to a cliff and the rep feels like 5 times harder. That is you leading with your chest or picking your chest up to finish. So that's the issue there that we're talking about. And then we said, what was the weight on that again? You said 245?
245, yeah.
Yeah, 245. Yeah. So like if you're pulling 330 that quickly, that looked like it had 2 reps in the tank easily, and then you're squatting 245 and then having that relatively much of an issue with it, then that's certainly, I would say, going to be form limited for you. That's going to be the hip drive thing. It's going to be leaning over. It's going to be getting to the correct depth. So if we just have to run through everything for him again, it's going to be widen your stance up a little bit, push your pecs down right in the middle of your feet. Okay. And then don't do that thing where you're staging onto the toes. And then again, just, so everybody remembers, he's starting a set and then he's rocking forward and then he's starting to squat. Okay. So when you're there, feel out the middle of your foot. It's okay to take a second and then feel where your balance is at and then say, all right, I'm here. I'm feeling the balance in the middle of my foot. Now I'm starting to squat. For him, he's doing the opposite. He's rocking forward onto his toes and then he's starting the descent. That's bad. We definitely don't want that. And then the final thing is just finishing with your hips. So just keep pushing your tailbone up to the ceiling no matter what.
All right, we have Chase.
Nice. Another rare chase.
He'll be happy because he was emailing me, asking me when this video was going to be done. And I didn't think it was going to get done today, but here we are.
I think he has his child filming.
I think so.
So depth is there for sure. So your boy's squatting sufficiently deep. Totally fine there. And then this set, we even got a bench. Okay, all right. Well, we'll handle this one at a time. So go back to the squat. So this squat set looked super easy for you, Chase. You can keep adding weight to this. The big thing, go look up that hip drive video. If you look up starting strength, hip drive, the four most important words in the human lexicon, you'll find the video for it. Watch it. Really try to understand it. Your stance is fine. Your stance is allowing depth, which makes it fine. You're looking down. The bar is probably in the right spot. But this is so light and so easy that you're just popping your chest up every rep. I want you to start practicing the hip drive now. Okay. Even in your next set. So this is 225, I think. Let's go to like 230 next set, 235 next time you do it. And then you can pause at the bottom and just think, I'm driving my tailbone up to the ceiling. I'm pulling my tailbone up independently, pulling my hips up. Um, and then that squat should be fine. I think, it's very possible you've never done a squat heavy or hard enough where it's demanded hip drive. But if we put like 275 on the bar and we're like, you have to squat 275 10 times to save your child's life, you would start using hip drive automatically because it would be such a difficult task for you that that's the only solution that would, mechanically work. But this is super easy for you still. You could probably do this for like 11 or 12 reps. And then because of that, you're getting away with leading with your chest, right? But we need you to start practicing the hip drive. So go watch that hip drive video, starting strength hip drive, and then really think you're at the bottom, drive your tailbone up to the ceiling. And then we'll watch your bench. I think this is just 135. I bet this is probably going to be super easy and not challenging. Okay. And is he going to hit this for a set of 20 or is he going to stop at 5? He stopped at 5. Yeah, so that was super easy. We're not going to glean terribly much from that. Um, Hopefully, the deadlift actually looks hard. It does seem as if you are tracking the bar with your eyeballs and then tucking your chin down. I don't like it when people tuck their chin on the bench. I think it causes a lot of neck issues, a lot of upper back issues. I'd say keep your nose pointed at the ceiling. Make sure that someone can see your neck, see your Adam's apple. It's hard for you. You have a beard, but imagine if someone could course. And then look up at the ceiling, right? So fix your eye gaze above you. Don't actually track the bar's movement, right? Because when you're tracking the bar's movement, that's going to become an issue whenever the bar gets really slow. You're going to throw yourself out of position. It's not an issue now because it's 135, it's light as hell, but it will be an issue when it's like 255. Okay. And then we'll see the deadlift. Let's see what's going on with the dead. All right, 315. We got straps on. I wonder if this is still going to look super easy by the end of it. He's just an easy-going guy. He doesn't like doing hard lifts. Okay. And he has some change plates on here, so this is like, if all of those are 45s. Oh, and we got some press. We're spoiled today, man. Um, yeah, so we're like 320-ish, 325-ish, something like that. Okay. Big thing here is the head positioning. Okay, so you're looking down, you're starting looking down, and then you crank your head up as soon as the pull starts. That's what we want to avoid. I'm working through this with one of my clients now, Josh. Josh, if you're here, if you're watching this, shout out to you. Um, the head coming up can oftentimes give the lifter the perception that they're setting their back into extension. They're two different things. Okay, so if you have someone with a rounded back at the bottom of the deadlift and you have them crank their nose up like this, and you ask them to extend their back, they're going to be like, my back's already extended. I can't give you anything else. What could you possibly ask for me? We like to keep the chin down a little bit more so the cervical spine neutral with the rest. That way you can feel the perception of the rest of it coming into extension. Okay. So what I want you to do is, when your shins are on the bar, just stop for a second. So like pause real quick whenever, let's say, his shins touch the bar, Mick. Okay. So if you're pausing right here in this moment, okay, at this moment, keep your chin down and then think you're pushing your belly down to the floor, and then you should physically feel your spine change shape. Okay, so when you're extending your back, you should feel movement. If you're trying to extend your back and it just feels like you're squeezing down, like you're taking a crap and nothing changes, right? You're not extending your back. It should feel like a physical change in position, right? So I can feel when my hand is closed and I feel when my hand is open. When I'm extending my back, right, I should be able to feel it rounded and then feel it extending. It should feel like there's a physical change in the shape of my back, and then you go. Okay, what's happening with him is he's there, the shins are touching the bar, he's cranking his head up. He's like, all right, I've extended my back, and then he pulls. Okay, this is still super easy for you. You could throw another 50 pounds on this right now, and then that's when the extension challenge is going to start happening. Okay, so the one thing they do at the start of the starting strength seminars, which is wonderful, and I don't think they do this at a lot of other places. I haven't seen it yet. Is making sure that everyone can extend their back. So they'll have people put their hands on their hips. Okay, you physically feel the bones of your hips, and then try to extend your back, and then you should be able to feel, right, your pelvis is rotating. Like, I'm wearing a black shirt, so it's not going to come through perfectly, right, but I can feel the wings of my pelvis shifting in space. They're rotating. I can feel my back extending, my lower back extending, and then you should be able to do that. So at the bottom of this deadlift right now, your pelvis is going to rotate as your lower back extends, and then you're good to go. Okay, so I wouldn't rush. This is so light. Even if you take, you can take solid 5 pound jumps for like probably another month and a half right now at this point, even if you're still deadlifting 3 times a week. But when you're doing that, be very diligent. Pause when you're right here. Try to extend your back, get your belly down to the floor, perk your butt up, and then pull. Okay, don't just rush and do the pull as fast as you can, because you're doing this sort of rounded back, stiff-legged deadlift. Is what it's going to become eventually, cranking your head up. If you can try to pause it basically once the bar breaks off the floor. Yeah, so right here, this is what we're talking about. Okay, so we see how the back is very clearly rounded and then the chin is pointing up. I want you to point your beard down, get your beard to touch your chest, and then you will have a fighting chance of extending your back. Okay, so if we don't adjust your head position and then I'm like, extend your back, nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to change. Okay, so what's happening is on your setup, the hips are getting too low because you're cranking the face up. So face is cranking up, which means hips are coming down, and then you'll just never have a chance to extend your back. Okay, we need the head down, the hips to come up, and then you're going to extend your back in between those 2 points. Okay, and let's see how the press goes. I don't know how pressing with a giant beard is, frankly. I don't know what that's like. I would wager the grip is a little bit wide. The hip movement is all over the place, but it's a good first attempt. Form, last rep. Okay. I would start taking, take like one, maybe two 10 pound jumps here. This is basically like a broomstick. This is like such a light weight for you that you will not be able to feel the bounce. Okay. It just won't really happen. So you're like doing a good job of like trying to throw the hips forward, but it's not going to actually pull you down enough. Okay. So as the hips come forward, basically what happens is I'm going to turn myself. Mick, can you make me the big guy? So let's say we're here, we're at the bottom of the press, right? As I throw my hips forward, the weight of the bar does this to my hand. It pushes my hand down like this. It goes boop, and then that pops up and I follow that through, right? If it's incredibly light, there's not going to be any movement here. And then basically I just like throw my hips forward, nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, I guess I follow that out, right? I need to get you like here, right? Let's say if we added 20 pounds to the bar and then this motion would happen, I have to like push down on my hand to make it happen. Boop. The elbow dips a little bit. Let's pretend this corner is the bar. The bar gets closer to my collarbone and goes, and then you charge it up, right? You can even just do the drill by yourself. Get into like a nice tight position like this, put your hand on top of your knuckles, then push your hand down, your shoulder will come down a little bit, and you'll notice your hand wants to like spring back up, right? There should be like a nice elastic rebound here. It's gonna go 1, 2, 1, 2. It's that same thing, right? Because I'll have both here, right? Hand should be really close. His grip is all the way out here. Hand should be really close. And then as we're pulling this down, I could pull this down and it should feel like it wants to pop off your chest. Pull it in, pop off your chest. That is what's happening during the bounce. But when the hips are coming forward, that's happening automatically for you. You don't have to think about pulling the bar down. Okay. Once the hips come forward, the weight of the bar will take you back down, and then you ride that wave back up. But yeah, I think the press is just so light that you're going to have a hard time feeling really anything, right? Because again, you could probably hit that for like 20 reps. I'm not kidding. Um, so I would definitely start taking more aggressive jumps across the board. The only thing I wouldn't take aggressive jumps on for you is the deadlift. You can probably just do 5 pounds at a time on the deadlift, but everything else I would start really kicking the weight up for sure.
Okay, we have Fernando. He
Dude,
says,
Fernando,
he says, I feel that I'm not achieving enough depth in my squat and might have progressed too quickly with partial form. Any tips to improve?
I wonder what gave it away, Fernando.
Do you need me to pause this one at the bottom or?
Is there a bottom?
I think that's it.
This is like great quad tendon training. I'm not
It
kidding.
is. It is.
There's a whole school of thought who wants their squats to look like this because they're like, oh, we're training the hell out of our quad tendon. Um, yeah, so I would rebuild this from the bottom up completely. The fastest way to get this guy to squat is, um, if you're in person, wonderful. It'll take 2 seconds. It will feel so deep it is unreal. So like a proper depth squat is probably 2.5 times the length of this squat. So you're doing, I would say, barely a quarter squat. You're doing like a 3/16 squat. Um, but we have a really good video, and I hate having to link it because people are like, what are you calling me, an elderly person? But it's a really good video of training someone on the squat from a low box squat from the bottom up. It is called Squat Training the Elderly or Squat Training with the Elderly. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Hopefully my keyboard's not too loud. Yeah, so if you look up the squat hyphen training the elderly, it is from 2016. It is a beautiful example of starting someone on like three stacked bumper plates, starting with them sitting on the box. So that way they understand depth, they understand where the bottom of the squat is, and then pushing their hips up off the box. Okay. Um, I would recommend doing that because it will save you so much time as opposed to trying to calibrate depth on your own. Because right now you're doing like a 3/16 squat, you're barely doing a quarter squat. We need you to get down so much lower. It's going to feel crazy for you. So you can sit on a medicine ball. I'm sure this is a big Globo gym. They'll have a box, but go look up the video. It is called the squat hyphen training the elderly, and then do exactly what they're doing in that video, and then you'll be able to figure it out. So you're already quarter squatting, 3/16 squatting, two plates here. So you should be able to start with, at least the empty bar and then put some 10s on, then put some 20s on, and so on and so forth. Um, but the big thing for you, Fernando, is you need to start at the bottom. Okay. Because we need to figure out where depth is for you. I really wanted, did he send in a deadlift? Did he send in any of their lifts?
No, that's all we got from him.
I wonder what his deadlift looks like, man. I was so curious. Part of me thinks it's just technically perfect. Like all of his lifting errors went into the squat, and then everything else is fine.
What do you think about the bar position?
I mean, the bar position, like, it leaves me a little bit wanting. I feel like this could be slightly lower, and then the grip is like sufficiently narrow. Like he has very flexible shoulders. That's great for you, Fernando. But it's such a low priority. Like I'm fine if he was holding the bar in his mouth. If he gets lower, that's fine. It doesn't really matter for me. It's kind of amazing that this is comfortable. I can squat this. I can squat way more than this, and I don't know if I could do the 3/16 quarter squats off the knee tendons. Have you tried a squat like this, Mick?
No, I'm sure I have in the past, and I'm sure my
It
knees
just
would
hurts.
definitely. Yeah, my knees. This hurts my knees just watching this.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember one time, I think it was the my last semester in my college gym, me and my friend were squatting, and I was already sort of like proselytizing the starting strength squat. So I had a lot of my judo guys doing like beautiful, ass to grass, hip drive, all those beautiful details for the squat. And then this guy came over and he was like, can you guys help me out with the squat? I've been having like a really hard time. It just hurts my knees. And then he takes out our working weight. I think we were squatting like 345 at the time. He just takes out 345 cold. It's this giant bodybuilder. He's like jacked to fuck. He's on a ton of gear, and then he just does that same exact quarter squat. His quads look amazing during it. He's like, it just really hurts my knees. It was the same thing. So like, it's not just you, Fernando. Like, plenty of people squat like this. Like, I'll see squats like this still all the time today. Even with a tremendous amount of Instagram propaganda out there about squatting to depth and all of those things, there's still people out there doing it. But my recommendation is, it's so hard to get someone with that working weight to like relax and sit all the way down. It's just not really going to work. or it's going to take a lot of time, which is inefficient for you, I would just recommend starting from the bottom up. So get a box, sit down at the bottom of it, and then push your hips up off the box, and then you'll be fine. It'll probably take you, if you're squatting 3 times a week, maybe like 2 weeks to get a hang of it. And then you'll be like, all right, I can squat 80 kilos to depth. Don't expect to do like one session to depth and then magically be able to squat 100 again that easily, 5 times the next session. It's going to take a while. It's going to, for you just to acclimate to that depth because you're so used to squatting with just your quads, just bouncing off your knee tendons, that, it's going to take a minute, but be patient with it. Start from the bottom and then you'll be fine.
And that's it. We are done. That's
Whew,
all of them.
we did it.
Smashed through it. That's
Nice.
like a Super Mario Turbo round of form checks.
Yeah, we're running high speed here, man. We're running high speed.
I thought you'd get that reference given you're, a gamer. You're not,
Yeah.
not in Mario, Super
I
Mario.
say the gamer word every day.
You didn't play Mario Kart when you were a youngster?
Yeah, I think the last time I played Mario Kart was probably like, I want to say like a month ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we had some friends over and we played Mario Kart together. Yeah, I think for my generation, Mario Kart, Mario Party, those are just like the penultimate party games, no matter what. So if you have a sufficient amount of them together, they will be playing that game for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so if you want to get videos on the shows, we send them to support at strength.club, right, Mac?
Yep.
Yeah, so support at strength.club to get videos on the show,
Or the app. Submit them through
or
starting
submit
through
them
that.
through the app. What do we want to see? I want to see less squats. I want to see more power cleans, is what I want to see.
Mm. Yeah, more presses,
Mm-hmm.
more power cleans, more bench filmed from
Yeah.
a better angle as well.
If
We had a.
someone could submit a video of chin ups, I don't think
Ooh.
in years anyone has.
No, we'd definitely get that on priority stat.
Yes, that would be absolutely amazing. I think probably the submission ratio, what do you think? It's probably like 50% squats,
Hmm.
30% deadlifts, 20% upper body work.
Probably 40% deadlift, 10% everything else.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
we're
something like
down
that.
we're down to 10 on the upper body gains. Yeah. So everybody start training your upper bodies more and then please submit those videos. If you're in the DC area, let me know. We can get some coaching going on. Or if you need online coaching, please let me know. Other than that, I think that should be good.
Cool. Thank you.